I don't know.
Order.
I definitely. Okay, bye guys. See ya. Aren't we having lunch?
You're running late, John.
Yes, we're running late, so I will try and rush this along. First item on the agenda that we have to deal with is a motion to approve the minutes of the prior meeting, the minutes of March 28th, 2016. Do I have a motion to approve those or put them on the floor? Yes, by Dan, seconded by Ron. Any discussion of or amending of those minutes? All those in favor of the minutes as presented, please say aye.
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 Next item on the agenda is a draft resolution submitted by Bob Schultz. And he would like us to consider sending a declaration that it would be a conflict of interest for certain individuals regulated by the New York State Constitution to be delegates at the New York State Constitutional Convention. And I believe in your packets you have something from Bob Schultz, a cover letter, Mr. Garrity and members of the board, and a proposed resolution. And I don't know, I don't speak to this, but Peter?
No, I read it quickly this morning online, and then I see it here, and I guess the question, I go to paragraph 8, and I'm just kind of need to understand the rationale or the implications that employees of New York State's government, political parties, and lobbying organizations have no business being delegates. But I guess it would be primarily employees of New York State's government. What does that mean specifically? What does that cover? What lobbying organizations? I think I can understand that. Political parties and how that's defined in terms of are we talking about a generic Democratic Republican Party? Are we talking about members of political parties? So I'm looking for a little clarity and something a little more specific to that issue. Again, the employees of New York State government, what that really fully encapsulates and includes, and also political parties.
I have the same concern. Ron?
John, who picks the state delegates for a state convention? Is that the governor's choice?
I'm not sure. I mean, this just came into my floor,
I mean,
discussed today, and
I
don't-
assume that we're going to have a constitutional convention?
Well, and the other question I had is who goes to the Constitutional Convention part of the Constitution? So if it is, that might be something you want to address at the Constitutional Convention. We can't address prior, because if it is part of the Constitution, you have to abide by it. So, Claudia?
I don't know for sure either, but the cover letter says citizens of Warren County to prepare now for the question of beginning a process of nominating and vetting candidates. So I assume there's some local process for who we send to the convention, if one is even had. But I agree, I don't know why we would exclude employees of the government. That's a lot of people. I agree with excluding lobbyists from being delegates.
I'm not sure if I agree or disagree with the employees of the New York State, excluding them. I don't know what that means.
Well, when you start, just Claudia is an environmentally concerned person. When you exclude the lobbyists, some of the lobbyist groups are going to be head and shoulders into this convention because they want to maintain whatever the APA is and Catskills and stuff like that. So, I mean, we need to be careful about that because, where do we want to go with it? And I'm not sure we should go anyplace with this.
Fine.
Well, I know, so it's just a discussion item today. There seems to be a lot of questions. Claudia?
Yeah, I would say let's find out what the definitions of each of these categories of people: employees, political parties, lobbying organizations. I don't think that would include, Ron, environmental organizations that are out there for
Well, you.
Lobbyist is a lobbyist.
A lobbyist
But a
is.
lobbyist could be a paid lobbyist, if that's what I was thinking of as the definition of a paid lobbyist.
Right.
Versus someone who is on an environmental board that's not
Yeah.
paid.
Valid.
So are you suggesting, Claudia, that we table this and
Sure,
we need for further information?
sure, yeah, I'll make that motion to table.
I'll
No, I would
second it.
go-
All right,
Second.
seconded by Peter.
Yeah.
All those in favor of tabling, Mr. Schultz's suggestion until we find, additional information, say aye.
Aye.
Maybe invite him to the next meeting.
Well, he's also asking for a presentation, I think it's a
30, 40
40-minute
minutes.
presentation.
Ooh.
He talked about a 40-minute presentation, which appeared to be a little bit lengthy, when maybe our questions, I think we can understand the intent of a constitutional convention and possibly the need, but, I think we maybe have some specifically defined questions that really, I think I would like him to come back or come, and, maybe answer some
We can
questions.
ask him to, let's have another September rules and legislative meeting, perhaps in about 3 weeks, and, ask him to that.
Great.
Do that.
I don't have any problem with hearing his presentation. I'm sure it's relevant and it has a lot of great information. I just think it needs to be scheduled in our next round of committee meetings. I don't know if a special meeting is necessary, but perhaps during the next regularly scheduled committee meetings on one of those days, we could do and allot enough time to hear from him and formally invite him if he hasn't.
Yeah, I think that's the consensus of the group, is to invite Mr. Schultz to speak to us at the next Rules and Legislative Committee meeting, okay? And we'll arrange for that. The next item on the agenda is a draft resolution proposed by Washington County to support the enhancements to public safety on Lake George. I know this is a big topic, and Claudia specifically asked me to have this on the agenda today. So, and there is an example of the resolution that came from Washington County. Is there anything you'd like to see in this, Claudia, since this is kind of something you felt strongly about?
Thanks, yeah, I did think we should discuss it in committee and consider passing a resolution similar to this. I also obtained the one that the Village of Lake George passed. It's similar, and it's calling, I'm not sure we can do a lot, but we can call on the Park Commission and DEC and others to take action. It's my understanding that the Park Commission already has some regulations in other bays to limit the amount of mooring and maybe, I don't know, number of people that can be in a space together, so that could be a way to sort of cut down on the Log Bay Day without totally making it go away.
What do you think of Washington County? And asked it to be on the agenda for our next committee meeting?
I think it's
That
good.
would work?
I think it's fine, I just think we need to go on the public record as they're about to, to say we have some concerns and, and even if we, wanna be as strong as possible and specifically call for an end to it, I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
Oh, one more thing I was gonna add is, you and I talked about voting safety and maybe licensing, and that's not quite addressed in here, and I don't think DEC or the Park Commission does that. I think we said it was, different agency, which I can't bring to mind right now.
Well, yeah, I think,
So maybe we just throw in their name too,
well, it says in the
such as,
resolution,
yeah.
calls upon the state of New York and its responsible offices, such as the Department of Environmental Conservation and the Lake George Park Commission, to take measures to curb dangerous and destructive activities that could include boater safety. I know it's a discussion, so I think passing this resolution does kind of send the message. And I know the discussion is happening in the Lake George Park Commission level, is to boater safety, have a 1-hour course before you rent or something.
Okay,
So, but,
I'm fine with this.
all right. Any other discussion? Then is there a motion to, ask, that this be
in support of this?
in support of a resolution similar to this, only, changed for Warren County instead of Washington County? All right, put forward by Ron, seconded by Matt. And all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, seconded by, Claudia.
Yes.
All right, the next one is mine. It's a think differently. It's not mine, it actually comes out of Dutchess County. And it's saying that we as a county would make efforts to look past our differences, would embrace what makes us human, would expand, our sense of inclusiveness, that we think differently for our neighbors with special needs. And we're talking about the whole spectrum of those people who have autism and those children and families who have those kinds of special needs. And for example, they created, here are some of the projects. Julie's Jungle. It's a 4,000 square foot regional handicap accessible playground with specialized equipment, such as ramps and a rubberized surface, special needs children, and short stair height that would better accommodate special needs children. Braille at some of these playgrounds to accommodate special needs. Braille play panels, sensory garden. These are just some things that other counties are doing. Enabling children with physical, visual, hearing, cognitive disabilities, and better handicap accessible baseball fields, for example, and the list goes on. In other words, I think if you read the resolution, has been available for you, you will see that it doesn't commit us to anything more than assuring that it is important to us that we be attentive to the needs of the special needs people. Okay, that is an introduction. I'll open it up for discussion.
Just want to say that, I think something like this would be great. I've worked in the past with the YMCA, and they were at the day camps and the after-school programs, and some of the children required some special attention. And I have people that are very close to me that also engage on a daily basis because of their occupation with autistic populations as well. And and it seems as though when there is a strong community around them to support these populations, you can really make a big impact on helping these kids make just what might seem on the surface a little breakthrough to us, but it's a huge breakthrough in their world. And if we could really get behind something like that, it would not just benefit those individual children, but it's going to really make a positive impact on their families, which might just be, it might be just as, if not more important. And, to have these families feel the support of their community, we would really go a long way.
I agree, and I think of the world before we had handicap accessible concerns and did something about it. The world was a little bit better for those people. Ron?
I think Lake George, there's a copy in here of Lake George
Lake
resolution.
George resolution.
And, I think it's something that we could easily do. As you say, there's no commitment, but, Lake George, the last whereas, it said that, business owners to adopt Think Differently initiative to so that all are better prepared to communicate with, provide for, and support those living in the autism spectrum and with special needs. And, you know, and it rings pretty true.
Okay, thank you.
Motion is, put it on the floor to send it to the full board for support.
Okay, motion made by
Second.
Dan, seconded by Claudia. All those in favor of sending
Well,
a resolution?
Discussion?
Oh, discussion, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So how is this different than what is, as Ron pointed out, how things have unfolded through the years as well for folks with special needs?
Well, I don't think it's different. I think what it's asking is, we're gonna pay more attention to what we're doing and how we could better facilitate those people who have special needs. That we are too concerned, and that we will pay attention. If there's somebody with a good idea that would help special needs people, we'll listen. I think it's,
We don't do that already?
well, you would think so, Greg.
It's an initiative, though, designed to educate, correct?
Yes, and just try and make people aware that
Aware.
you could be making better efforts. And you would
Okay.
like to think that we do. I get the point. But, yes,
As a
Claudia?
point of discussion, I think we should pass it just as a reminder that we should be doing this already. And that we can continually improve how we're seeing and meeting the needs of people with special needs.
Thank you. Any additional discussion? All right, can I have a vote? All those in favor of forwarding or of putting on a resolution for George's as one for the county board to consider, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Also on the agenda is a no smoking policy, and from what Jeff has told me, the issue is this: we have a no smoking policy on the campus, I'm not sure if it's county-owned properties, but certainly on the campus. There has been request by some, rather than walk over to Glen Lake Road, off of the campus property, could we allow some designated areas on the property to be set aside for those who still smoke cigarettes? All right, so it's open for discussion. Any thoughts, Craig?
You know, I voted against the resolution, make it a smoke-free campus, because it's a big campus. It's a big place to go. And so I'd be open to an idea of making a place to accommodate those that do smoke. I was going down Broad Street yesterday, and I see that workers from the hospital go across the street and they smoke over there on kind of the median strip there, which isn't much further than from here to the back, the other side of the parking lot. I think there's room to accommodate. And one of the problems I do think was when there was smoking outside, that some of the places were just got, I don't know, just from folks that work here were telling me, it gets stinky with smoke and whatnot, and it's not that appealing. But if there's other places and so on and so forth, I think we should look into accommodating that.
Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I was in the hospital this morning, and that's, as Craig mentioned, there's no smoking there. And, I think we want to be, reasonable, sensitive, but I don't think we ought to encourage a policy where we kind of look the other way, where it happens to be 0 degrees out on a winter day, where we've allocated a spot, and someone decides that they're outside the building and not adhering to the policy. If the board wants to be sensitive and try to understand that there be a degree of enforcement of the policy, that we just don't kind of look the other way.
also enforcement as well as.
I don't know,
Which way
I.
are you advocating?
No, I'm advocating that, you know, we provide an area, but we just ensure that the area is safe enough, far enough from a health-wise perspective that, you know, the average person who chooses not to smoke doesn't have to ingest those fumes. So we go ahead and we allocate an area, wherever that may be. Hopefully it's at the, you know, pretty much the extreme of the campus, but the practical reality of a day when it's 10 below zero, and, you know, a smoker would like to smoke, do we just go outside the building to smoke, or do we go to the smoking area? So it's just, so, as a board, I would like to give on it. I'd like to be understanding and sensitive enough to it, but at the same time, I'd like to see the person on the other side of it to, when they do decide to smoke, that they go to the area where smoking is permitted.
Ron?
John, from a businessman's point of view, you know, if we don't provide a facility, a staging area that is close enough, I'm looking out the backyard here and I say that, I'd like not to be in the public's eye in terms of on the main, in front of our building. But if you think about it, if you make it at an extreme end of the building, how many hours or minutes are we gonna be losing with people trying to get to it? You know, let's make it convenient, let's put it in a place where it's behind the building. And, yes, am I in favor of providing them with something? Yeah, I think so, because some way or the other, they're gonna get to smoking, and, you know, who's gonna enforce it? You know, we gonna have smoking police now? I mean, I don't know how you do that. And what would be the, offense? You're gonna get docked on your pay? You know, you could start to think of all of the things that might be bad.
Claudia?
I am not in favor of bending the policy. We made the campus smoke-free, and I think we should stick to that. It is an inconvenience, but we're asking them, for the health of the rest of our employees, to keep it off campus. SUNY ACC is a big campus, and they do not, they're smoke-free, and they do not have any designated areas on campus. So you have to do your smoking before you come and after you leave.
Well, we're tied at 2-2 so far as to accommodate or keep smoke-free. Dan?
The people, I haven't heard from anybody that works here that wanted it smoke-free, except the supervisors. I have heard from people that do smoke that was worked for the county a long time that are terribly upset. When I voted on it, I thought I read it that it was smoke-free within 50 feet of the campus buildings, but I guess that's the off-campus buildings, and my interpretation was incorrect. That's why I voted for it. What they've said to me is that, you know, it's a change in condition of employment, similar to, this is the scenario that was presented to me if we had a coffee ban as a caffeine. You know, would you get more pushback because more people drink coffee? I mean, arguably, is that good for you, et cetera. So I think there's a limited amount of people that smoke. Possibly the union isn't representing or coming forward with a change in working condition. But the reality of it is these people are probably going to continue to smoke, and I do see it. Angiodynamics out near the airport, they smoke on the guardrail across from the. I don't think that's healthy or safe, and, nor do I think smoking is. But I think we have to be practical, and you know, we should give a spot where they can get to it in a reasonable amount of time and do what they have to do. And that's my feeling. I think it's too significant of a change.
I tend to side with Claudia and Peter. However, maybe we could do an accommodation, but the accommodation would be for a certain amount of time, and after that, we're going smoke-free. You give these people a chance to wean themselves off of the cigarettes. I don't know if maybe that middle ground might be something the committee would consider. But in any event, your thoughts, Rachel?
I think going smoke-free is an important part of our campus, but I also recognize, learning today about the petition, I haven't seen the petition. I don't know how many of you have. I'd like to see the petition that's been circulated. I think it speaks volumes that there are employees at our county that have circulated a petition, and while we had I don't know if we had a public hearing or what, it certainly was on the board, agenda, and nobody spoke, against it. Sometimes I think that speaks to the date and times of our meetings, so I did a informal social media poll on this. It was split right down the middle on how people felt about it. So I think that if a petition has been circulated and if supervisors have had concerns from employees, I don't think giving a time for people to have an opportunity to quit is necessarily going to make a difference one way or the other. As we've been told before from our HR department, we do have those programs in place. They are free of charge to our employees. Our prior county administrator was going to do a survey. I don't know if that survey ever went out or not, and I think because it was pending for so long on the agenda, we pushed it forward to the full board and made that move. We have seen some positive remarks from people writing to the paper and some other things about it, but I'm not opposed to a designated smoking area somewhere on campus. That I'm worried about the safety, not only of smoking, but also the safety of people to be on the side of a street during the winter, or a car or traffic. From what I've heard from members of our community, they've driven by and it's all, workers are all on corners smoking in highly trafficked areas. So, I don't know if that cost should come at the cost of the county, or if there's a way to, we talked before about a gazebo, we talked before about some shelter. Obviously the policy is the policy right now and it's passed and we're smoke-free, but I don't know why we couldn't work with our facilities or, a subgroup to come up with, talking with some of those people on that petition about what will be a good policy for them. Because with this, I've heard a lot of complaints about everything from walkers to, people around, that it's not the people that are on campus that are the risk of, starting a fire. It's people that are visiting the campus, going to DMV, going to social services, that it's not our employees. So I think if we're going to do this, there does have to be an enforcement mechanism if they're outside of a designated area. But I, for one, would love to see the petition and learn more about what our employees think.
Would you support a designated spot for a limited time period that would have to be renewed? So we can see how this develops and see maybe we could tie this to some kind of community shouldn't smoke program kind of thing, right? I don't know what map.
I come from a household where both parents smoked, and I would, my first job out of school was actually in construction related, so I go to a lot of job sites, and most of that population smoke. So, I'm around it. I've been around it all my life. I personally don't smoke, but I also do remember that we would go to certain job sites where smoke is not permitted. You go to Queensbury School District, their campus, smoke-free, correct? You go to Aviation Mall, smoke-free, tobacco-free, actually, not even just smoke-free. So it's not just a public sector thing; it's private sector as well. And that's just, although I am sensitive to those who smoke, that is kind of the norm of where things are going with social attitudes towards smoking. I understand, your comparison with coffee. Some people might see that as being a equitable parallel, but there's some very proven serious health risks associated with smoking and secondhand smoke. So, that being said, my initial reaction is that's the policy. It's policy here. It's a policy if you want to work in the private sector, most places are like that too. That being said, if we want to try to accommodate some of that population, I'd be okay with that. But there's no such thing as a smoke break. So there's your enforcement right there. You go on your break, and if you think you want to go outside to the gazebo on your 15-minute break, take a puff. When it's 10 below, that's your prerogative. But that's the accommodation there, so, that's where I stand on it.
I'm getting the feeling that we're kind of 4-4 here. And, a couple of you were in between. As far as, so there is not an overwhelming support in this committee to make any accommodations for the smokers on campus. It's not clear. I got 4 who are opposed to accommodating and 4 who would consider some kind of accommodation. Yes, Craig?
That, we're here talking about things that affect people who work here. We don't necessarily work here. And I'd like to really hear about folks that do work here and what are some of the thoughts. If you have 78 people on a petition, you know, are they all workers here, et cetera? And how about generating ideas from any of the departments that do work here and are here all the time, so that we're not creating this in a vacuum?
Okay.
Because I think that's,
In other words, you're suggesting we table this and get some more input, for the next, Legislative and Rules Committee meeting?
another 6 months?
No, we'll have one next month.
Okay.
I second that tabling.
Okay, so there's a motion.
But now, how,
I'm
yeah.
going to ask, Amanda asked Jeff if he could give us a little bit more feedback on those who were smokers and what are they proposing. So we'll look at that. How about that?
I believe, Chairman Garrity has the petition and that explains what they're looking for.
Oh, okay.
So, he failed to bring it with him today, but he had just left it in Warrensburg, so I'll get that from him and I'll send it out to
All
him.
right, so we'll have that at our next meeting?
I
If
can
we're
email it
also
out
talking to
beforehand.
Jeff about that, like, where would this be? Cause I know we have
Yeah.
fuel on site, we
Ron's
gotta,
suggesting looking back on
Well, yeah, I mean, maybe Jeff has a point, a thought.
Yeah, all right, so, there's a table and a second. Any further discussion? Yes, Rachel?
Just when it comes to more than one location, like in terms of giving us options, but a cost factor, associated with it would be
Okay.
good.
Yeah, yeah. All right, all those in favor of tabling this till next month, Rules and Legislative meeting, say aye.
Aye.
It passed. Now, I'm supposed to be someplace at 1:30. The other items on the agenda, drones. I think we were pretty clear in our last meeting that this is a federal and state issue and not necessarily one for the locals. Okay? Mrs. Wood, Evelyn, was going to invite somebody to discuss agricultural districts. So that hasn't happened. Could we follow up and maybe have agricultural districts at our next meeting?
I will ask her.
Okay. Okay, privilege of the floor.
thanks.
Claudia?
Okay, I just wanna bring up one thing that maybe we can get on our next agenda, which is, about the voting procedure. If we could make sure we understand how that is supposed to happen and how the votes are tallied verbally in committee. Because of the issue that came up the other day when Ms. Wood was the chairwoman of a meeting and the vote went through without everyone understanding that that was the vote.
The vote to go into executive
Yeah,
session?
yeah.
Well, I mean, traditionally, and Brian can correct me, but, I mean, I'm on several boards, so you know. If you make a quorum, the majority of those who make the quorum, if they are in favor of going into executive session for a valid legal purpose, that becomes a valid executive session, if you have a quorum.
Right, but in that instance, people did not vote. People simply stayed silent, their voices were silent,
Oh, you
and
think it should
so.
be maybe a verbal vote on going into executive
Right,
session?
if you don't get it, if you say that there's 5, so
All right,
you need
well, good.
whatever, how many,
Can we
4.
put this down as a discussion item?
Yeah, for next
You don't
time.
mind me rushing you
No,
along?
that's fine.
But I think it's a valid discussion item, it's fair. Well, let's
You know,
put it down.
maybe only one person said yes, but we acted as if it passed, but that shouldn't, we can
Okay,
talk about it.
all right, okay. well, if it does, anything else from the board? Yes,
Just
Rachel?
with that note on what Claudia said, maybe we could get from Brian, like, a quick tutorial at our next meeting on Robert's rules, like executive session versus committee versus, a cheat sheet.
Yeah, and how many votes,
Yeah, like, just
And
kinda
I do have a cheat sheet.
train up.
I made up for my Board of Ethics, but,
Motion to
Brian,
adjourn.
It'd be different on the county level.
Move for adjournment?
second?
Move second, all those in favor say
Aye.
aye. All right, thank you. You don't wanna hang around a couple more hours?
Claudia, you got 30 seconds, I'll walk you through it.